most dangerous predators in nature share one trait. They are completely still. They don't chase, they wait, with the chilling patience of something that already knows exactly how the hunt ends. Look at this painting. Circe sits enthroned at the very center of the canvas, one arm raised, the other extended toward you, holding a cup. Her chin is lifted. Her expression is unreadable. She is simply waiting. And that stillness, that total inhuman calm, is the most unsettling thing in this entire composition. Because she has done this before, many times, and it has never gone wrong for her. John William Waterhouse painted Circe Offering the Cup to Ulysses in 1891, and buried inside this canvas is a dark meditation on a very specific kind of dominance, a power that operates in complete silence, weaponizing a gaze that locks on and simply waits. But to truly comprehend the sheer gravity of that power, we first need to look down into the shadows and see exactly what she has already done to the men around her. To construct a perfect trap, you need perfect geometry. Waterhouse understood this brilliantly. He deliberately wreathed Circe in a halo of cool colors, her porcelain skin contrasting sharply with the hazy, muted surroundings to make her the absolute, unavoidable focal point. She is entirely in control of her environment. But let's look at the evidence of her work. Hidden in the dimly lit corners of the canvas are the victims who have already fallen for her trick. We can see Ulysses' crewmen who have been completely transformed into pigs. They are trapped in their new, beastly forms, serving as a visceral warning of what happens when you drink from that cup. And just to add to the unsettling atmosphere, there is a toad squatting quietly in the foreground. The physical space itself projects absolute authority. According to the myth, Circe rules the island of Aiaia, and Waterhouse grounds her magic in heavy, imposing historical reality. Heavy Doric columns frame the background, resting on a meticulously detailed classical mosaic floor. She sits elevated on a massive throne of gold and marble. The armrests are carved into snarling lion heads, and the base is anchored by heavy lion paw feet, with a small, classical winged head carved quietly into the gold, right where she rests her heel. Even the ancient Greek bronze incense burner, smoking quietly on the right, adds to the suffocating opulence of the space. The entire room is a monument to her dominion. Which begs a rather massive question. Why is the greatest hero of the ancient world shoved into the background of his own story? If you look at how classical myths were usually painted, the male hero is almost always front and center, chest puffed out, sword drawn, ready to conquer. Not here. Waterhouse completely rewrites the rules of heroic art. To find Ulysses, you have to look behind the sorceress, into the massive circular mirror resting behind her throne. The mirror is a masterful piece of visual storytelling. Within its reflection, we can see the broader world, the heavy columns of Circe's palace, and outside, the masts of Ulysses' ship docked by the sea. But look at how he is portrayed. He is not a towering conqueror. His reflection is etiolated, shrunken, and skulking warily to the side. He is hesitant, timorous, and entirely relegated to the compositional margins of the painting. Waterhouse has deliberately reduced the legendary hero to a mere spectator, a passive onlooker in his own story. According to the myth, Ulysses has actually been intercepted by Hermes, who warned him of Circe's intentions and gave him a special plant to make him immune to the potion. Ulysses knows it's a trap. He knows she plans to touch him with her wand to complete the transformation process, just as she did with his crew. He is moments away from drawing his sword and threatening her. Yet, Waterhouse chooses to ignore the hero's triumph. He chooses the moment of the hero's supreme vulnerability. By placing Ulysses solely in the mirror, his presence becomes secondary. The mirror here doesn't just reflect the room, it reflects the absolute power dynamic. Circe commands the physical space, while the male hero is nothing more than a ghost in the glass. But why would a Victorian painter in 1891 choose to practically erase a legendary hero and elevate a dangerous sorceress to such a godlike status? The answer lies in the deeply held anxieties of the era he was living in. To understand why this painting looks the way it does, we have to look at the society that produced it. 19th century Britain was a patriarchal fortress, governed by strict moral codes and rigid expectations of how a respectable woman should behave. And then you have Circe. Clad in a diaphanous, wispy robe, she sits with one breast casually exposed. In Victorian society, displaying this level of female eroticism outside the safety of classical art was entirely inconceivable. But Waterhouse uses the mythological setting as a shield. By placing her in ancient Greece, he could explore themes of female dominance and sexuality that would have been heavily censored otherwise. Circe represents the ultimate Victorian nightmare, the femme fatale. She is a woman operating completely independently of male authority, living isolated on her island, entirely unbothered by societal norms. Historically, literature had often painted her as a one-dimensional villain. Roman writers like Virgil stripped her of her divine status, portraying her simply as an evil enchantress who maliciously poisoned her rivals. But Waterhouse's interpretation aligns with a shifting cultural undercurrent. Instead of painting her as a hideous hag, he paints her with immense respect, awe, and a healthy dose of fear. She is a powerful figure, in command of supernatural forces and her own destiny. Her exposed breast isn't just about seduction, it is a display of supreme confidence. She doesn't need armor. Her beauty and her magic are her weapons, and she wields them with terrifying precision. Waterhouse was fascinated by the occult and the power of the female sex, and in Circe, he found the perfect vessel to explore a power that men could neither understand nor easily conquer. The painting forces the viewer, presumably a Victorian man, to confront a woman who is not a subordinate, but a master. But Circe was not an isolated experiment for the artist. She was part of a much larger, darker obsession. The compositional choices Waterhouse made here, the subdued man, the commanding woman, the tools of the occult, became a structural blueprint for how he viewed mythological power dynamics. Waterhouse reused these specific elements to prove that the dangerous sorceress was a recurring archetype throughout history. Decades after painting this, he brought Circe to life in a large oil sketch, portraying a pensive Circe seated before an open tome and an empty goblet. We see this blueprint again in his 1907 painting, Medea and Jason. Medea is seated in a frontal position, serving as the dramatic focus as she skillfully pours a magic potion. Jason, meanwhile, is ranged sideways, relegated to watching her passively as a mere onlooker. Even the elements of witchcraft carry over: the live snakes, the roiling cauldron over an open flame, and the toad in the foreground all echo the visual language established in his earlier works. In all of these paintings, the classical male hero is dramatically upstaged by a beautiful woman equipped with supernatural powers. Circe was Waterhouse's prototypical femme fatale. He used her to show us that true power doesn't always arrive with a drawn sword. Sometimes it sits quietly in a chair, holding a cup, waiting for you to make a mistake. By the way, if you'd like a museum-quality reproduction of this painting, you can find it over at our store, viewcrypt.com. The link is in the pinned comment below. See you in the next one.